So, Avengers Doomsday is coming out, as a lot of you know. Along with that, recently, Disney Plus made a big playlist about the essential movies to watch before Avengers Doomsday. They listed 15 movies, and it was a little divisive. People had questions about why certain movies were being left off, certain movies feel important, other ones feel more important, and it got me thinking, what's my list? No, it actually didn't get me thinking that. I had my list for a while, to be honest with you. Right when they did all those chairs, I had my list because I really wanted to start marathoning them. But how do you marathon for a movie like Avengers Doomsday? For Infinity War, it was so simple. You know, they had all the movies laid out. Literally, I mean, you could just Google it. All right, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. But then with this concept, the multiverse becomes more complicated, and you could potentially be marathoning 100 movies to get all the context for Doomsday, which is why the movie feels very alienating and it's very hard to market. But with that said, they did try to help us out a bit. You know, they revealed the cast, they revealed plot, specific information, and so they gave us hints towards the movies that we should be watching. And so I used those hints to create what I think is a much more comprehensive list of all the movies you should watch before Avengers Doomsday. The way I came up with the list is pretty rudimentary. Basically, I just looked at all the cast members, specifically all the cast members who are like superheroes and villains or whatever. Basically everyone who was announced, the cast who are confirmed to be announced, and I looked at the last time they were in a movie. Not in a cameo, but when they were a featured player in one of the films, like when they were one of the main characters, and specifically the last time they did it, not the best time, the last time, so we can get that immediate upfront context. And when you do that, you get kind of a comprehensive idea of the movies you should watch. It's actually kind of neatly divided in what I would consider 4 different categories, and so that's what I'm gonna go over right now. I'm gonna go over the list of what I think are the essential films to watch before Doomsday in the most comprehensive list. And I didn't do 15. 15 felt arbitrarily short. I did 19 because before Infinity War, there was 18 movies to watch. So I felt it was only fair to give 18 movies in this list, and I put 19 as kind of like a cherry on top. And so without further ado, let's go through it. The first category are the Fox X-Men films. This is pretty rudimentary. This movie is obviously advertising itself in sorts of being the meeting between the X-Men and the Avengers. They put a lot of emphasis on them on the marketing. It feels only right that you watch them. Now, when Disney Plus did their version of the list, they only included X-Men and X2, which I find to be a major oversight, and it's kind of giving in to the people who say they don't want to watch the Fox X-Men movies. Now look, I know that they have their controversy and a lot of bad people worked on them, and they're not the most accurate to the comics, but those are good movies. Those are fun movies. And one of the better things about Doomsday is that we get to emphasize that people get to watch these movies, especially if you're only familiar with the MCU. You get to experience all these really cool movies with these new characters that you never experienced before. That's a lot of fun and very similar to the movies you already like. With that said, they're clearly emphasizing the OG X-Men. They're not really emphasizing the prequel X-Men. So the movies from that verse I would put on the list, and that's how we're starting off, is X-Men, X2, X-Men 3 The Last Stand, X-Men First Class, and Days of Future Past, and Logan. Out of that list, X-Men, the first one, technically doesn't feature anyone's last appearance, but it would feel weird within continuity to start off with X2. And X-Men First Class, again, doesn't feature anyone's last appearance as well, but for continuity, it would make more sense to watch that before Days of Future Past, especially if this is your first time watching this. You know, from this point on, I'm going to go with the perception that you've already watched these movies, and the rest of these are basically rewatches. But with the Fox X-Men, you do have to take into account that for a lot of people, this might be the first time they're watching these films. So it is important that they get the full gist of the story. And so because of that, I think these movies create a comprehensive continuity, even though as you'll soon learn, the Fox X-Men have a horrible continuity between films. Regardless, that's how you'll start off. And there's no break in between. There's no MCU movie that's in between these. So you're going to be just kind of really hardcore marathoning the X-Men to begin with. And so, you watch that. Have fun with X3. The next section I would consider Infinity Saga nostalgia. Specifically, this section is the nostalgic period for the Infinity Saga, which they're clearly delving into because the Multiverse Saga didn't do so well. They're trying to get some of that trust back, some of that pull back from that era. And for this one, I'm only including 2 movies, which pretty obviously are Infinity War and Endgame. Once again, Infinity War technically didn't really need to be included, but it would be really weird to watch Endgame without watching Infinity War first, so I included that one on the list. But yeah, these two movies are specifically for Cap and Tony. We're seeing them back again. Whether Doom is a variation on a Tony Stark or not, it just feels safe to have him included in there as well. And same thing with, of course, Captain America. I mean, this makes the most sense. We need to see how his story ends in that one to see how he's brought back in this one. And it kind of feels like, honestly, Doomsday is going to be a direct sequel to Endgame anyway. So it just feels appropriate to watch those films. Section 3, carryovers. These are the multiverse saga films that worked. As we know, the multiverse saga was a bit of a mixed bag. But some of those movies worked, and so these are the leftovers of that. They had a plan, they changed it for a lot of reasons, and so now we're kind of seeing the scraps of that plan, so what movies were considered good enough to be kind of part of this party of a film. And out of those, we are including, I'm going to have to read off my phone, I'm sorry, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, Loki Season 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Captain America Brave New World. Interestingly, the thing about these movies is these are the ones that are considered the most successful out of like the multiverse saga. Even a movie like Thor Love and Thunder, which wasn't critically well reviewed.
Something like this. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. You have a go. No, that's not it.
Made a shit ton of money. And now Thor is obviously one of the main characters, or maybe the main character based on the trailers of Doomsday. Some interesting insights, Doctor Strange 2, The Multiverse of Madness, a movie that I like, is not included in the list, and it feels like kind of setting up Doomsday in a lot of ways, but just simply put, no characters from that movie seem to be coming into this one. That could be and will probably be wrong, but they're none of the marketing, And so they are specifically implying that film will not be needed for this one. Because if Strange and Scarlet Witch and Clea if they're not even in it, then they're going to have to re-explain all the concepts that they explained in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness anyway. Another interesting one is Spider-Man No Way Home. This is kind of a question mark of a film, because we know at some level Spider-Man will be in one of the films, whether it's Doomsday or Secret Wars. He will probably be a cameo, either in the beginning or in the post-credit scene in the movie. But an even bigger question is, we don't even know what Spider-Man's going to be in it, Brand New Day teaser heavily implies that it won't be Tom Holland's Spider-Man who's in the film, and it will be one of the variants, whether it's Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Miles Morales. We'll see what happens. So it feels safe to have Spider-Man No Way Home. It has 3 of the Spider-Men, so more than likely it will feature one of those characters. And again, Spider-Man No Way Home was super successful. It was one of the most successful films of the Multiverse of Soul saga. Maybe the most successful one before Brand New Day. So it just makes sense that they will use elements of that film in this one. Another weird one is Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. This movie is the biggest kind of we're changing our plans film. That film heavily features the villain Kang, who probably won't even be in Doomsday, and it really marks a very different type of MCU than we're at now. It was at an MCU where they thought, they couldn't fail, so they could just throw garbage on the screen and expect us to eat it up. And they were quickly proven that was not the case. But Ant-Man is in the movie, and they will probably have to acknowledge Kang in some way, either just like a passing mention, or maybe he will play some kind of pivotal spot, even if he's not literally in the film. So it just makes sense to include him. Also, his daughter's in the movie as well. So there's 2 Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania actors who are going to be in this movie. So yeah, it is important for him to be in it. And we have our only TV show, Loki Season 2. The TV shows were not successful. Most of them just felt like padding and filler. And the biggest waste of time was when they would introduce new characters like Moon Knight or whatever, because then you really feel like, these are characters we're never going to see again. So it kind of just felt like a complete waste of time. With that said, the most successful and popular show was Loki Season 2. We see Loki, not only do we see Loki, we see him in his variant outfit from Loki. And the finale of Season 2 very, very heavily implies that if you want to do any multiverse stuff, you will have to deal with Loki in some way. So ultimately, it does make sense that he is in this list. However, I didn't put Season 1. I just put Season 2 for the sake of brevity. You can just find like a recap of Season 1. It's also good. If you want to watch it, watch it. But what I'm talking about here today is Season 2. And then we get into our 4th category, The Russos are back. These next 3 films, they do have characters who feature in Doomsday, but more importantly, it definitely feels like when these movies were coming back, you could feel that the Russo brothers were back in charge and they were controlling things behind the scenes. Specifically, I'm talking about Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, First Steps, and Spider-Man Brand New Day. Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts have end credit scenes that are directed by the Russo brothers and are very clearly leading into Doomsday. You can actually see a huge pivot between Captain America Brave New World and Thunderbolts. In Captain America Brave New World, they hint at something vague is coming, but they clearly don't have an idea of their plan yet, and so they just have the leader saying, yeah, something's coming, I guess, I don't know, but something's coming. And with Thunderbolts, it's very clearly, hey, we're heading in a specific direction, get ready. And those movies only came out a few months apart, but you can definitely feel a difference. And again, that's also why I included Brand New Day. Brand New Day, as I said before, we have no confirmation that Tom Holland will be in this movie, but there's very clearly elements that are carrying themselves to Doomsday, specifically the end credits scene. So I think it makes a lot of sense to include that film. And that's it. Those are my 19 films you should watch before Avengers Doomsday. Do you have any disagreements? Is there anything I left off the list? Let me know in the comments section below. Have a great day.